please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Globally, the way that people dine, shop, live, and work is changing. Technology and a drive for experiences, lifestyle, and wellness are two of the key trends which are shaping the physical spaces around us. Here in the Middle East, beyond these trends, there is also an increasingly competitive marketplace, as well as ever more options for consumers and travelers to select from. All of this wider change in the environment is making it ever more imperative for developers, landlords, and other real estate and construction stakeholders to rethink the way that they deliver and develop new projects, as well as find new and innovative ways of responding to changing consumer needs and preferences. Today we will explore what it truly means to stand out in an increasingly competitive marketplace, as well as understand how the construction and the real estate sectors are keeping up the pace with changes in the retail and hospitality market. So to start off our discussion, Joe, why don't you tell us about the key trends that you're seeing in the retail and hospitality sectors?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, what are the key trends that you're seeing in the retail and hospitality sectors?
I can't hear you again.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, no, I can't.
I'm saying what are the key trends that you're seeing now in the retail and hospitality sectors?
First, I believe that this summit is about the region and the GCC, and there is something that we need to understand, that what's happening at the moment in Saudi Arabia is different than what's happening in this part of the world, and then it's different than what's happening elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So if you see what we did in the last 15 years in UAE, and how the UAE has been flexible, and then it did change. So we can see from a retail sector, when we started in the early days with city center, and then we moved to Dubai Mall, and then we moved to Emirates Mall, then we started moving towards outdoor areas like the Box Park, and then the City Walk, and then the Walk, which is in JBR. Some of them, they failed, or it didn't work properly. Some of them, they were successful. The main issue that we're facing now at the moment, it is this kind of change and how the market gonna be flexible to suit the current situation. Because our main concern is that, are we gonna have too many Dubai malls next to Dubai Mall? And this is a key issue that all of us, we are discussing at the moment, because you have, within 5 minutes drive, 3 major big malls that they are coming in the next 2 years. And that's the major question from a retail perspective. So the adjustment and the flexibility in the market is very important. If you go to the hospitality sector, which is another big item, there is a debate, do we have enough hotel, or we have enough rooms, or do we need more rooms? Again, like any business, even for us as business owners, our businesses are flexible and they do adjust accordingly. And that's where we felt that 15 years ago, the start of 5 stars resort and 5 stars hotel, then like 8 years ago, the 4 stars, and now the 3 stars and the business hotels. So that's where everything is changing. And the demand from clients is changing, and mainly it's the feasibility study nowadays. And the feasibility study, the clients used to have one feasibility study, then 3 months later they go ahead with the project. Now we're seeing the feasibility study, it's been repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated until they take the right decision to move on. There's nothing wrong in that. It doesn't mean there is a slowdown or anything else. But this is the right way in developing any investment, especially in the market that's getting properly developed. If we go back to Paris, and then we see after Mitterrand, when he developed all this public building and the big infrastructure project, there was kind of a slowdown in the market because the city, it was properly developed. And there was adjustment for the needs. And this is how we see things gonna be moving based on area. On Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of requirement. As we saw in the study, it's 10.4% only is coming from religious tourism, where things now are changing. the visa on arrival, it's coming, it's gonna start soon, so things gonna change. And then there's gonna be demand on hotels, different demand that it's here than in Kuwait or elsewhere around the world.
Yes, I think that's a very big point as well. How do you stand out in, as I was mentioning, an increasingly competitive market? So, Ali, maybe would you like to give your thoughts on that? What can you do to differentiate your projects?
Sure. So from our perspective, I mean, in terms of on the retail side, whilst we are primarily residential developers and we have a large and growing hospitality portfolio, our retail is complementary to our residential offering. So from our perspective, for example, when we made the decision to retain 150,000 square foot of prime waterfront retail space at Marina Gate, we did so with the view that it wasn't just about standalone feasibility and trying to get as much F&B in there as possible. It was designed so that we could actually manage the tenant mix. So we did that with the view that anything we wanted to implement there was going to actually positively affect the neighborhood. So we had a larger variety of services, such as nail salons, beauty salons, as well as shopping supermarkets, and a large neighborhood gym. And we also did so with a view that when we designed it, we did it so that we would actually save some of the tenants' money. So all of them had grease traps and the like. So it's these additional value-added services, I think, that we had implemented, which helped. Also, because it is waterfront retail, and when the weather is good, you have the bifold doors so that actually people can enjoy the outside weather even when they're inside. So from our perspective, it was just about design. It was about making sure that whatever we built actually there was a market need for. And that's been well received by the market. Yes. So in short, that was it. We spent a lot of time thinking, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, great. So we're seeing a lot of this theme around lifestyle, enhancing lifestyle as part of the wider retail experience. Prabhanjan, what do you think are some of the challenges with addressing lifestyle here in the region?
Well, from the design perspective, typically we see that it takes at least 5 to 6 years before a project gets completed. So when the actually feasibility studies start and when we start developing the concept, obviously we don't have an insight into what the future holds. But what we have seen is those projects, mixed-use projects, retail and hospitality, are more successful, which actually factor in an amount of flexibility in design, which allows the developer to keep changing as the market changes. Because in this world we live in, it's all about disruption. Just yesterday, Forever 21 went into receivership, apparently. And the major reason is because of the online marketing taking over. So obviously, going to a shopping mall to shop is less important now. It's more about lifestyle. Recently, we did a refurbishment of a mall in Singapore, where the whole idea was to bring in the youth. So we had cycling tracks inside, we had skateboards, we had breakout spaces where young people from Singapore can go and lease it out for a day and have a party. And actually we could see that actually brings in a lot more crowd. So I think going forward, like we said, it's all about lifestyle and how flexible your design is to adapt to a changing market.
Yeah, definitely. Kieran, maybe you can also add your thoughts from a cost consultant perspective. What are the things that you're seeing in the market? How is that being impacted throughout the development and design process?
Yeah, I think both panelists have touched on the issue of feasibility and getting feasibilities right at the outset. And I think that's seen a change in the role of the QS and the cost consultant to be involved at that very early stage in a market which is under pressure. There's 55,000 units coming on board in the UAE alone in the next 2 years. So that necessarily creates a more competitive market, and certainly for construction costs. So, arguably, you could be in a race to the bottom. And I think that's reflected in construction costs and the feasibilities. And developers now, I think, are looking to the QS, the cost consultant, to take a front and center role at that early stage, work collaboratively with the architect, with the developer, to set those boundaries early, to allow the feasibilities to be done right at the outset. And ultimately that saves time and it saves cost.
Yeah.
And there is, I believe, also like, on top of what you just mentioned, we really need support from authorities. And this is something important at the master plan level. Because what we see now at the moment that at the master plan level and the land use, there is too many of the same next to each other. And that's where it's gonna create an issue in the future. And whatever I just mentioned about the malls next to each other, so that's why we feel from a design perspective at a master plan level that the whole city, any city, it needs a proper master plan from day one. So there will be no issues in the future. Because whatever it did work in UAE, it doesn't mean it's gonna work somewhere else. Or whatever it did work in UAE 10 years ago, it doesn't mean that today is gonna work. And that's where, again, we're saying flexibility and adjustment. Things has to be adjusted. And that's where we always requested committees between designers, master planners, RTA, the municipality, where they all come sit together and start to work towards a proper master plan vision, which in a way or another, Abu Dhabi, they started that with the UPC. So this is something that we really need to think about also. We can't do it alone, we need to do it all together.
But the creation of the real estate committee that has just been announced, I think is a positive step towards that. And I think there's a real strong message that has come from the government that they're looking for quality projects.
And diverse.
Yeah.
Diverse projects to create a diverse offering.
With that quality, you're kind of readjusting the alignment of what developers are going to float to the market. And rather than just simply cutting cost, you're working again collaboratively to look at best value in projects, rather than just simply the bottom line. I think that's an important message to take away from that.
I would like to add as well, there's another trend which I've noticed, and it started out with community malls, and they're really catching up now. It is successful because it's kind of close and convenient for people around, and it also caters to that exact population around the area. So it's very accessible, and you can grab a coffee and just go back home or go to work, and So I see that as a trend coming up. And like the rest of my panel said, there is a lot of flexibility required, even in these malls, because things can change a couple of years again.
Yeah, definitely. I think that goes back also to Ali's point about one thing is creating retail destinations that encompass a lot of these entertainment, leisure, shopping all in one place. But another almost easy win is providing the right type of retail for the surrounding community as well. Yeah. Martin, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? I know you've also done some work in Saudi, so maybe you could also comment on that.
Yeah, look, we're doing a lot of work in Saudi at the moment, and obviously with the younger generation who have possibly been educated in the West or even throughout the GCC, there is a huge demand for F&B and for cinemas and other leisure projects. So we are personally working on a number of cinema projects throughout the kingdom, not just in the primary cities either. I'm talking secondary cities and even tertiary cities, because there is just a demand. You've got a country of, 20 million people, I think, spread throughout the entire kingdom. So it's not like the UAE where we're focusing just on one or two cities and an incredibly dense population. We're finding there is a demand for quality F&B, not just QSR, not just fast casual, but quality F&B, cinemas, and then of course other anchors. And that's not just in mega malls. It's spread throughout largely community malls that we're finding.
Yeah. Good. Ahmed, what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Okay, I think from our support to the developers and the client and the hospitality and retail sector, what we're trying to come up differently than the traditional and the normal focus on the hard costs is to look into the operation costs. Now the market is moving towards the mid-market hotel segment. As Joe said, that it's changing. It's not only high-end development or high-end hospitality. The market is moving more into the mid-range. So, and this is based on some research that there's a hike in the millennial travelers. So it's all changing. So what we're trying to help our clients is that to focus more onto the operation cost by engaging the operator and the facility management consultants at the design stage, where we can effectively reduce the operation cost. The operation cost, it forms from 5 to 7 times the construction cost in the retail and hospitality, which is a big amount of investment that if efficiently we were able in the design to mitigate and reduce this cost, it will help to keep the investment on the retail and hospitality sector sustainable, as long as it's moving into the mid sector.
Yeah. So again, I think making the market open to a wider range of travelers and shoppers is something that we're seeing across the sector, definitely.
Yeah.
We've talked about hospitality in isolation, as well as retail in isolation. How do these components come together? What do we see as some of the challenges and opportunities when it comes to mixed-use developments?
I believe that recently it was announced in Japan and UK that your fingerprint will become your credit card. And it's been implemented. And if you see that the e-shopping, what's happening with the 80,000 shoppers and retailers that they shut down in the US because of the online system, and all these changes in technology, if you ask me now what do you reckon is going to happen for the retail and hospitality sector because of the technology, I'll tell you I'm not the right person to answer, because these things are changing on every day. And this kind of technology, I believe, is going to have a big impact on retail and on hospitality. So nowadays, like, if you see there's a couple of big operators in China, they're putting all their operation system under one roof. It's like the control room. So they don't have the different department in each hotel anymore. They have one centralized department that will control their different hotels. And this is, again, it's efficiency and cost cutting. So we are exploring, and we're gonna keep exploring, and operators are changing, because at the end of the day, we as designers, we develop the operator's requirement and the client requirement. But we feel it, that things are changing, and they think differently, because the clients, they're becoming tough on cost and operation cost, which pushing the operators to go in a different direction. From a retail sector, it's the big question mark. It's a big question mark.
It's interesting when you're combining the two, retail and hospitality, you see a trend, well, luxury is no more about opulence for most people now. It's a lot about convenience, lifestyle. You see successful hotels near successful shopping malls. So that in addition is another trend which is quite successful, I should say. Full occupancy sometimes, you know, so that's a very positive thing for, or it's like a pull factor for a hotel if constructed near a mall. Yeah.
RSP, we've been here for about 25 years. About 6 years back, we started working on our flagship project, which is the Nakheel Mall and Palm Tower on the Palm Jumeirah. I think next month, the Nakheel Mall opens up. There is a tower which is also under construction, which is St. Regis, which opens up next year. What was interesting is the synergy between the hotel and the mall. Because as you see going forward in the hotels, it's all about experience. It's all about the front of house spaces and what you can give, because the rooms are quite standard, pretty much. But what is it extra you can give to a customer, you know? So when we were designing the tower, the whole idea was that a lot of facilities are shared between the mall and the hotel. So a lot of the F&Bs actually are linked to the mall. And it works very well because the footfall draws both of them together. A lot of people want to go and stay in hotels where they could go to visit the mall very easily, and that's why Dubai Mall is successful, and Mall of Emirates and all that. So I think going forward, mixed-use projects are going to be a lot more successful than standalone retail or hospitality projects.
You mean that will be successful in this part of the world?
anywhere. I mean, our experience in Singapore, in India, and China has been that a developer always starts with having both the components integrated.
Including service departments as well, I should say.
Yeah, for examples of megacities, again. So that's why we need to be careful that such projects, it's not going to be successful everywhere. It's going to be successful in megacities.
But in the GCC, the retail is very much a lifestyle destination.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the hotel mixed-use component with the retail works.
That's right.
But you know, a lot of retail work that we're involved in now is refurbishment.
Yeah.
And you know, the operator's looking for something new to keep up with the changing demands from the end user.
Yeah. And that's actually a good point to bring up. So we have the new build, which has challenges in and of itself, but how do you effectively refurbish and reposition an existing asset, and what are the challenges that come with that? Anyone?
I believe that any refurbishment, it has to be phased in a way that they can still make money from their current assets. So you can see in different malls or different hotels, there will be partial shutdown for systems and then floors or sections, and accordingly they will start doing the refurbishment. Yes, it's a hassle, but this is part of our job as all of us. Yeah. So coordination, how we do it, how we plan it from day one. It's not an easy job, but this is you're gonna see more and more refurbishment in the market.
But before we start refurbishing, we need to get the tenant mix right.
Yeah.
Well, and we need to get the anchors in, and then we need to start with the structure and the MEP services and get those right. You know, we're finding a lot of these mall refurbishments that there's a lot of retail spaces which are being converted into F&B, for example. And you know, F&B tenancies, we all know, draw a significant amount of power and HVAC services, and a lot of these malls, especially in Saudi, haven't been built to accommodate those tenants. So that's a huge challenge which all of us are facing.
Yeah. Prabhanchan, any lessons that you can take from your projects in Singapore, India, other parts of the world?
In terms of mixed use, or?
Yeah, and mixed use refurbishments, let's say.
Well, I think the key thing is, like you said, how do you handle a refurbishment while the mall is still active? Generally, we have seen in Asia, the malls are not so large. So essentially, the refurbishment we have done back in Singapore and in some parts of India, we pretty much shut the mall down for 6 months and go for refurbishment. But I think the key thing is, like we said, right on the design stage, to have that flexibility to locate the cores and the back of house services in a way that the mall can still function while you go about your refurbishment. But of course, the key understanding is going forward, what are we doing with our malls, you know, and that is actually a big question. The kind of size of malls we have in this part of the world, which will require actually a complete rethink in terms of what is a new offering that's going in. Malls are not easy to walk, so we'll have to look at ways and means of splitting the mall into experiences. Right now we're working on a mall, it's called the Dera Mall, coming up on Dera Islands, 1 million square meters in area. The biggest challenge we found in designing that was, how do we make sure that the mall is easy to walk, it still feels very cozy, and still you have a large area to cover. And for that, we actually introduced a lot of green spines which run across, a lot of parks which come into the mall. So what we are looking at is a cluster of 3 or 4 malls which can actually work independently, but still they're connected. And in future, if let's say they do go for refurbishment and look at a new offering, it's very easy to shut down one part of the mall which works independently without disrupting everything else. So that is one level of modularity which we brought in the new design. Of course, this mall will take another couple of years to build, but we are well under construction on that.
I think as well as the market is moving into the mid-market hotel segment, the requirements are different than what used to be earlier on the previous established assets. The efficiency now is required to be more, the room spaces are required to be less. So I think one of the challenges that you might face when you are refurbishing any asset is that there might be some constraints or some limitations from the base build that will affect reaching to the parameters that are required to be achieved for this segment. So this is one of the challenges I think that will face the refurbishment of any existing asset.
And I think also when it comes to hotels, I think one of the key trends that we're seeing as well is how do you activate even the common spaces beyond just the people that are staying in your hotel. And one of the key things that we're seeing increasingly in other parts of the world is bringing in some new types of offerings, such as co-working within the lobbies. Have you seen in any of your projects an increasing, let's say, demand from a developer or a design perspective for these new co-living, co-working, and how do you see that impacting the industry?
So from our perspective, we are seeing that operators are also implementing flexible spaces. So for example, it started out in potentially established markets such as New York, where in the day you have a lobby, and in the evening it actually converts into a bar. So we're seeing that space utilization is now so that it becomes a lot more efficient. I think to your point about the mid-market hotels, Gabriella, you could probably provide some context as to why are we going down the mid-market route. I mean, we're seeing that, for example, cities like Dubai have a stated ambition of getting 25 million overnight visitors by the year 2025. And then it begs the question of where are we going to get those visitors from? And when you look at those source markets, they're more suited, you know, maybe they've got bigger families or they come with their parents and also with their children. So when you're looking at people that need now 3 rooms as opposed to 1, it's more cost effective for them to actually use the mid-market hotels, which, you know, what we're seeing is that occupancy is remaining relatively stable, but ADRs across the market are going down. In part, that's because the offering is changing from 5-star to 3-star. Yeah. So that context is also helpful, I think. It's part of the discussion.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think to your point about millennials also now representing a bigger portion of the global travelers, increasingly millennials are looking for, let's say, more value for their money, but also a brand or an operator that affords them a certain type of experience. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of those types of lifestyle, mid-market brands.
Yeah.
Anyone else on?
The Rove Hotel, you know, those brands, Rove, Vida, Zabeel House, they've done that very well, I think. They've gone for that mid-market level, but they've done something a bit more unique with it. You know, with the co-working space in the common areas as well, you know, bringing that to the fore. And I think with you know, clever cost management at the outset, you can deliver something unique at a reasonable price that is a quality product, not just, you know, pushing the boundaries of lowest cost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Rove also, going back to this mix of retail and hospitality, has a cinema, for example. So I think increasingly, and I think we can all agree that those, let's say, blends of different uses are going to continue moving forward.
Recently, we did an experiment with Kerzner Hotels on one of the expo sites, and the whole theme of the hotel was based around health. So as you walk into the lobby, you can actually see an open gym. There's no segregation of a gym area or a lobby area of a cafe. The cafe, of course, serves all healthy food. And a lot of spaces were dedicated to health and, you know, having a very healthy lifestyle. And what we did is the rooms itself were actually very basic, something like a Rove. So that actually you encourage people to spend more time outdoors into the common areas and the swimming pool and the gym and the lobbies. So we're working with Kerzner on that, and maybe they'll launch a new brand very soon. Looks like that's the way to go. Yeah.
Joe, how do you see this new wellness health trend impacting, let's say, the design of projects?
I believe that I'll go back to the situation in the current market, which is affecting any project and then affecting any hospitality or retail project. It's the perception from clients about the cost. The construction cost. There is this perception that it's affecting all of us. Is you tell the client that this project is going to cost you $500 million, and then in a meeting for 3 seconds he will say, I'm going to pay 200 million. So this is where we're struggling, and then it's like dictating because things are not moving in the right direction in some sectors. The clients, they come and dictate that this is what I have to pay and this is what I want to pay. And that's the whole team will start struggling, and everybody will start pushing hard to reach that level and that amount. And this is the big concern that we have, that everything that's getting developed now is a squeezed number. what's going to be the quality outcome in the near future. So there is a lot of things related, and cost is a major key player at the moment. Yes, we need retail, yes, we need hotels, we need different things, we need the co-workers, we need everything. But at the end of the day, it's cost, it's consultants' fees. You have clients you will call you and say, we want you on board, 50% discount. So at the moment, I believe all of us, we have a responsibility in order to control the quality, and then how to team up all together with the client in order to protect such projects, design them properly, because any project you put on site is going to be there for another 40, 50 years. And this is where the problem will start. So everybody is like saying that I want to get my ROI in 10 years. Yes, you will get it, but after 3 years, if the project is designed in a wrong way, you're going to lose beyond your ROI. So this is, I believe, it's a kind of some major lesson that all of us, we have to keep in mind for the coming couple of years in the whole market of retail, hospitality, and other things.
From our experience as well, you know, taking that costing forward, the successful projects that we've been involved in, they've had complete transparency and collaboration between the developer and the consultant team, you know, the architect, the project managers, the QS. And they're really the ones that can deliver a quality product. I think the value now that what was a traditional QS, you know, the measurement and quantities and rates, the value that we can bring now up front to help guide the designers to say, well, these are the parameters that you work within to meet the budget that the client has got to play with. You know, that's a value added that, you know, we're seeing is more prevalent in the market now.
And we, as a key player, all of us in the market as consultant, we have to be able to say no to clients in a proper way, because that no, yes, it's creating kind of a big competition that it's affecting all sectors. That's going to affect the retail and hospitality also. So there's a lot to do now.
Yeah, definitely. So I think planning, flexibility, and really finding ways to respond to the consumer needs are key success factors moving forward for the retail and the hospitality industry. Thank you all for your food for thought.